This is the Shaver Prep Football Podcast, episode 40, season 2, presented by Aquarius Home Services and brought to you by Truestone Financial, 612 Quarterbacks, and powered by 10K Construction. In just a few minutes, with the help of Minnesota All-Star Football Outstate Chair Bill Magnuson, we'll reveal the entire 88-player Minnesota All-Star Football roster. That's coming up. And a reminder, on Monday, November 17th, my Talk North All-State football team will be released, and Oliver West of Minnesota Prep Red Zone will be in studio to help me break down the 2025 team. That's on Monday, November 17th. It's state semifinal week in Minnesota high school football, and how about this? All 4 number 1 seeds in Class 6A are out. Defending champion Maple Grove was steamrolled by Lakeville South on Friday night, 49-31. And 6 seed Moorhead wins in Class 6A over 1 seed Centennial, 35-21, to advance to the state semifinals at US Bank Stadium this week. All right, Kevin Feeney, the head football coach of Moorhead, big win on Thursday night, beating Centennial 35-21. How would you rank this, Kevin, as wins in your career? Where does this stack up, considering that you guys moved from 5A to 6A, and this is a monster state playoff win?
This one's pretty high up there. There's no doubt about it. You know what? It was an emotional night as the game was winding down, and to be able to get a good hug with Jet. You know what? The Lord works in mysterious ways. He had obviously the injury, and I, you never knew if he was going to get that opportunity to come back. And our team has been so resilient throughout this year. And I really honestly told them after the Eden Prairie game, when we lost and we went for the 2-point conversion, we didn't get them. And I told them in the locker room, I absolutely loved them. I loved the way we competed. I loved our spirit, and just kept kind of saying if our belief was once we got our bullets back, that we were going to be okay. And this playoff run has been that. But super special because I tell you what, offense, defense, special teams, they all showed up last night in some huge ways.
So let's talk a little bit about maybe the maturity and the growth of your line, because that was the concern when you and I talked before the season started. How would your line hold up over the course of 6A football? What do you say now about that?
It's just amazing group of kids, super smart. Eric Paul is our offensive line coach, and he's a very cerebral guy. He's not your traditional, like, old school offensive line coach. He went to Carleton, so let me just tell you that's what kind of, and he teaches AP stats here at the high school, so he values intelligence. And you know what, our group is never going to be the biggest, strongest, offensive line on the field, but I tell you what, they play the game the right way. We feel like our system gives them an opportunity to be successful both in the run game and the pass game. And Tay Rich and Madison Sua, we've got great running backs, but I tell you what, our offensive line, like you said, especially when Jet went down, and yep. Austin Dryberg was thrust into a situation and he performed tremendously, but it really was leaning on our offensive line, and that hasn't changed. I mean, if you look at it, the eye-popping numbers maybe come in our pass game stuff, but we do enough in the run game where you have to at least respect it. And our offensive line, I tell you what, like I said, it makes it really easy for me as a play caller because they make it right based on the fronts. And that's a huge credit to, number one, how intelligent they are, but also Eric Paul, our offensive line coach.
All right, so flip that to your defensive line, because again, that would be a concern coming into the season. As you and I talked, you kind of said 6A's they're all the same thing. They just run the football. If you can't stop the run, you're going to be in trouble. How would you say they have performed?
Tremendous. Same thing. Matt Anderson's our offensive line coach. Now, he is a traditional old school throwback defensive line coach. He believes in it takes what it takes. And he was a 3 technique at South Dakota State. His son is a tremendous offensive lineman at the Division I level, and he knows what it takes. And same thing. We don't have the biggest, most fiercest defensive linemen, but we've got 3 seniors who really, really have played exceptional football and really kind of been the unit each and every week that we can rely on that's going to come out and play extremely physical. And, when you play Centennial, and I mean this in the most respectful way, they play a nasty brand of football, and they are flat back, 4-point stance, fire off the football like we haven't seen. And I thought our defensive line, I asked them in the pregame speech to play this thing like it was a street fight. And you can't get bullied, and they really stood up to all that. And our linebackers, that's the best our front seven has played this entire season. And Centennial, like I said, super amount of respect. They were state champs a handful of years ago. They know how to win. They've won a lot of football games, but I don't think our kids went into the game any wide-eyed because of the regular season schedule that we played.
Yep. It's amazing. The West has been so dominant in the playoff picture in Class 6A. And I was going to ask you about that. I know the schedule was brutal. I think you finished 4-4 in the regular season, but you must have learned a lot about what 6A football is all about.
We did, and I think that's been kind of the message to our kids is we're battle tested, and you know what? You don't want to have to develop depth because of injuries, but realistically, that was what we went through for quite a bit of this season. And last night was a perfect example of we maybe had a handful of guys that played a bunch of football, but we had a lot of guys that played a handful of reps, but played it at a super high level, and it's because they started in games earlier this year that maybe they didn't think they were ready for, but guess what? Hey, buddy, you're going to go play guard this week against Eden Prairie. and that's a tall task. But I think sometimes, and I joke about this, but we're so far out of it and that maybe we're so far removed from it that it's a blessing that these kids don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And they just go out and compete. And I really credit our kids, but our strength program and Chris Musselman, our strength staff, he creates this belief system in our kids that we've done the work. We've the way we practice, the way we lift, the way we do our meetings, all that stuff gives us an opportunity to win football games. And our standard is our standard. And we've never wavered on that. And it's really kind of came to fruition. But ultimately, our kids believe that we have the opportunity to win because of the investments we've made prior to the games.
All right, I got to read you these stats because they're amazing. David Mack, 106 catches, 1,457 yards, 24 touchdowns in 11 games.
And here's the
good
thing.
Lord. I mean, Kevin, that's just insane numbers.
And he did it 5 weeks without his starting quarterback.
Exactly.
And you're a receiver. And David Mack, his family is super close to us. And David and Jed have a bond that's like no other. David's at our house. Shoot, David's in our hot tub sometimes when we're not at home. So I play as much golf with David as I do with anybody in my life. And so I say that because I have the utmost respect for David and how he does his business, because I knew he was super special since about third grade. But I say that because David is so good at what he does, but I'm going to give a ton of credit to the guys around him, because our wide receiving core has to be, David's going to be the focal point. Everybody knows that.
Right.
But we have to do a lot of smoke and mirrors to move David into positions to get the football. And that requires those guys, number one, to be selfless, but number two, to be super intelligent football players and be able to all of a sudden be told on a moment's notice, hey, you're going to go play the Z spot instead of the S spot, just so that we can get David in there and maybe get him singled up. And you know what? I think in one of the key drives of the game last night, Tay had a great rush or two in the drive, and we had 5 different receivers on that drive to score a touchdown. And I tell you what, we've lived on you can't double everybody. You can't, explode the box, whether it's on whatever edge part. Whatever the box is going to give us, it's Jet's job to get it to that open guy, and those guys got to make plays when those opportunities come. And last night was a perfect example of that. And I can't say enough. Zach Walker, JJ Dunlap, Gage Bakke, David Mack, Tay Rich, Madison Sua, and we've already talked about our offensive line, and then our sniffers. I call them sniffers, our wingback, H-back, whatever you want to call them. They've been just super tremendous, and I tell you what, total team effort. But like you said, those stats, and Dave would be the first to tell you, we run a ton of buddy routes. And so if your job is to take that safety out of the picture, then you've got to run that route as hard as you possibly can, because it's going to open up somebody else. And like I said, David's playmaking ability is off the charts, and we're blessed to have him.
Well, congratulations, 35-21 over Centennial on Thursday night, and now you head to the state semifinals at US Bank coming up next week. Thanks very much, Kevin. Good luck the rest of the way.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Thanks for doing this all season long, Randy.
I want a stress-free holiday season, which means no surprises except during gift giving. And here's my gift to you: a new Connecticut water treatment system. Well, I'm not going to buy it for you, but if I did, we'd save up to 25% right now thanks to Aquarius Home Services. Enjoy sparkling dishes, softer laundry, and worry-free drinking water. Sound good? Well, then gift it to yourself. Go to aquariushomeservices.com today to get started. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended. Our Talk North Walk the Talk winner is Lakeville South junior running back Griffin Dean, who rushed 22 times for 296 yards and 6 touchdowns, a school record, in that victory over Maple Grove. Amazing. And Edina beat Eden Prairie 23-21, meaning that Mason West will play football at least one more week. West, who was drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks this summer, will leave Edina once football is over to begin his hockey career in Fargo, then Michigan State, and one day, he hopes, in the NHL. But football this week as Edina plays Minnetonka in the 6A semifinals. Our Talk North game of the week, and frankly, every game qualifies, but undefeated Class 1A teams Minneota and Mahnomen Waban will meet on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Minneota has won 44 consecutive games. Congratulations to all the state semifinal teams. Well, the Minnesota Football All-Star Game is set for Saturday, December 13th at US Bank Stadium. Bill Magnuson is the outstate chair for the All-Star Football Game, and he joins me now to talk a little bit about the behind the scenes, how the food is made, how the rosters are created, how the coaches are hired, all of this kind of stuff, which is a laborious process, I would say, from start to finish. But thanks for doing this, Bill.
Yeah, no problem.
Let's start with the players, because 88 players,
Yep.
Not just North and South, but Metro and Outstate. Talk about the process of selecting players and give us an idea of how you guys determine how many Metro, how many Outstate, and what the formula is for the players.
Yeah, Randy, as you mentioned, it's 44 players for the North and 44 for the South. And in that 44, we always try to have a kicker. So the process is this: about the end of September, head coaches in the state of Minnesota get an email with a nomination form, and they can nominate a senior. It's a senior-only game for the All-Star Game. So we get about 240 nominations to 260. I take that data personally and I manipulate it into a North and South division. And then I take that data one more time and I manipulate it into a Metro and Outstate too. Those lists then are sent to committees. We have a North Outstate committee, a South Outstate committee, and then a Metro committee. And those are committee members are coaches across the state, and they represent different districts of football. And then they take the names that were nominated and they put them in a list and they send them to the teams that play against these kids and ask them to evaluate them. The head coach also sends us quite a bit of information of evaluation too on their player. And then basically we meet after the section semifinals on Sunday morning, and the North and Outstate picks their about 22 players for the Outstate. And Brian Vosen with the at Lakeville North, their committee picks about 22 for the Metro on the North and South. And then we mesh those two rosters to make 44. It's a very cooperative working agreement. If Brian has a few more Metro guys they need, some years, we'll succumb and give them a couple more, and they're willing to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Some of your listeners are going to wonder what makes up the North and the South. Okay. So this is how we do it. For simplicity reasons, you could say sections 5 through 8 are the North, sections 1 through 4 the South, but it's not that easy.
Right.
We use an actual road. We take from the Wisconsin border, we take I-94 to 394, all the way to Highway 12, all the way to the South Dakota border. Anything below that line is basically south. Anything above that line is basically north. And then the metro, basically the metro goes on counties. They go on the counties that are involved in there. There are 7 counties that make up the metro. They are Anoka, Carver, Dakota, Hennepin, Ramsey, Scott, and Washington counties. So that was a mouthful what I just told you, but it does come together. And what's really cool about this, Randy, these are coaches that are in section playoffs that are on this committee, and they're putting in extra work just to give seniors across the state an amazing opportunity to go play at US Bank Stadium and, represent their community and their school and everything.
I'm glad you explained all this, because I think there's probably fans out there that, why didn't this guy get on, or why didn't that player make it? And maybe they think it's kind of a haphazard way of choosing players, but it's anything but that.
No, there's a science to it.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There is. And just want you to know, Randy, we take great pride in trying to represent all classes of football. That's why there's always going to be a 9-man player or 2 in there. We have 6A, we have 5A, we have 3A. And one of the things our committees really try to do is geographical representation too. We want somebody from, the northeast part of the state or the northwest part of the state to be represented in this game as well too. So we try very hard to make sure we honor those criteria.
All right, let's talk about the head coaches. Who are the 2 head coaches for the North and South?
Okay, for the North, it's Justin Voss at North Branch. Been very successful there the last few years. And the other name people are going to know, the head coach is Garrett Miller from Stewartville, 2-time 3A champions, now moved up to 4A. But those are the head coaches for the North and the South.
Do those coaches then choose their own staff, or how does that work?
We actually have a committee that picks the coaches, and it's kind of cool how they do it. If you've been successful recently, we're probably going to try and pick a couple of those coaches. But what I love about this other committee is they also look at coaches that have put in some time, and maybe our assistant coach will have an assistant coach, or maybe you're a head coach that runs a great program, just not having the luck of getting a state. We try to reward those coaches as well. So it's a great combination of coaches, and it's not all from 6A. There's a 9-man representation. There's 1A, all those things.
So the Vikings are involved in this in so many different ways, but certainly on the financial end. Why don't you talk a little bit about what the Vikings do to make this football game happen in December?
Well, I think people need to know the history behind the All-Star game. I've been doing this a long time. I've been blessed enough to have a couple players make the game. When players made the game in the past, we had to go out and sell ads or sell tickets to try and raise the funds to be able to allow them to play in the game. It's a very expensive week and weekend. Well, the Vikings stepped up a few years ago. Bless their hearts. They have financially taken on the whole thing. As a head coach now, if your player makes it, you don't have to worry about raising funds. They are treated first class. They stay in a hotel. They have meals. There's a banquet. They get to play at US Bank. So the Vikings were very grateful. Also, their ticket sales to the game, they donate to the Tackle Cancer Foundation that you run, and stuff. So it's just a great relationship between the MFCA and the Minnesota Vikings.
That's awesome. All right. So the players will start to gather that week. When does it all start? They will practice. Talk a little bit about what their week looks like when they show up.
Yeah. So basically, the players show up on December 10th at 8 a.m. They have to let their winter coaches know they made the game. They're going to miss 3 to 4 days and maybe a basketball or a game or a wrestling tournament. But they show up on the 10th at 8 a.m. and they check into the hotel right there by the Vikings complex. They have 2 practices per day. We keep them pretty busy so they can't get in any trouble. So we go 10 a.m. and we go 1 p.m. and they have practices. I think the North practice is at the Tonka Dome, and then the South practice is at Concordia St. Paul, their dome. So they have practices. And then in the evenings, we actually have some pretty cool things. We have 2 NFL players that come in and talk. Zach Zenner's coming in to talk to the group.
Yep.
One night, they have a banquet on Friday night that's a shirt and tie. It's a very formal event. It's a very cool event. We keep them pretty busy with their activities. And then Saturday morning, they get up and take a bus to US Bank and they get to play at 1 p.m. where the Vikings play.
And for some of those players, well, probably a lot of those players, they would never get that opportunity to play at US Bank because it's so difficult to make it there for the state semis and for the prep bowl. So this is a huge opportunity to play in that facility. It's so cool. All right. So how can people get tickets? How can people find out where do we send people to get tickets for the game?
Well, you can go to Vikings.com. And you can also go to allstarfootball.org. Tickets can be bought at the gate. We will have a live ticket link up here pretty soon on the allstar.org, and the same with the Vikings, and you can buy your tickets. It's $18 for adults. It's $9 for students, and that helps defray some of the cost of the game.
Bill Magnuson, the head football coach at Pequot Lakes, the outstate chair for the Minnesota High School All-Star Football Game. Thank you so much. When I come back, I'm going to name the entire roster, North and South, coming up next. Stay with us.
Thank you.
This episode is brought to you by 612 Quarterbacks, Minnesota's premier quarterback development program. At 612 Qs, they're committed to creating a high-quality quarterback development program, both affordable and accessible. Their training goes beyond the basics, not only focusing on proper throwing mechanics and footwork, but also building strong football IQ, leadership, and resilience. Their mission is to educate, inspire, and challenge athletes to raise their standards on the field and in life. Through training and mentorship, they're building more than quarterbacks. They're building a community rooted in growth, accountability, and shared success. Learn more today at 612quarterbacks.com.
Welcome back. Now it's time to reveal the entire roster for the Minnesota High School Football All-Star Game to be played on Saturday, December 13th at US Bank Stadium. We're going to start with the North and the defensive tackle who headlines this team, future Gopher Howie Johnson. Howie at 6'3", 270 set the state record for tackles for losses and sacks. It's one stat. The career record, 108. He made 66 tackles this fall, 25 for losses. Forest Lake lost an overtime game to Edina in the section final. Joining Howie at defensive tackle is Khalid Afuya of Stillwater. He's an Iowa State commit. Jack Morissette out of Alexandria, and Bryce Nordland of Zimmerman. The North defensive ends are Josh O'Shea of Centennial, a 3-year starter at 6'2", 215. Simon Vinton out of Orono. Jackson Barkowitz out of Holdingford, headed to the University of St. Thomas. And Peyton Allen of Sartell, also verbally committed to the Tommies. The North has 5 inside linebackers on the squad, which includes Oliver Spahn of Grand Rapids. He's having a great season with over 90 tackles and 10 sacks. Joining Spahn, an inside linebacker for the North, is Ryder Skansen of Maple Grove, heading to the Air Force. Sawyer Thompson out of Spring Lake Park, Garrett Bauer, great linebacker out of Monticello, and Dylan Widner, who played for Stephen Argyle Central. The outside linebackers for the North, just 2, Oliver Kuhn out of Breck, and Cal Pelon, who played for Robbinsdale Armstrong. The North defensive backs are led by Maple Grove's shutdown corner, Braden Dozier, who's headed to NDSU on scholarship. His dad, former Gopher Yuki Dozier, outstanding player. 5 others joined Dozier at the D-back position for the North. Philip Say out of Osseo. Easton Riddlehoover, who plays football and baseball, will do that at UMD. Gabe Westman, 2-way star out of Annandale at 6'4", 200 pounds. Levi Harris, great player for Elk River, headed to South Dakota. And Colby Tappy out of Staples Motley. So that is the North All-Star defense. Let's now meet the offense, and led by Ricori, offensive lineman and future Gopher, Andrew Trout. Andrew had a great season at 6'6", 275. His coach, Greg Enns, says Andrew is the most dominant offensive lineman he has seen in 25 years of coaching. Andrew averaged 6 pancake blocks per game, giving up 0 sacks. Joining Trout at offensive tackle for the North is Matthew Peruz out of Maple Grove, headed to Montana State at 6'4", 260. Jerome Eichley out of Blaine, Noah Deedle out of Litchfield at 6'6", 300 pounds, going to South Dakota State. And Evan Zabel of Alexandria at 6'3", 285, he's heading to North Dakota. The North has 3 guards. Earl Brown out of Pillager at 6'4", 275, he's going to NDSU. Brady Goyle out of Melrose, 6'7", 270, he's going to North Dakota. And Ashton Tucker, who played for Champlin Park. The North centers are Julian Wana out of Monticello and Tyler Kernow of Stillwater, who's verbally committed to Montana State to throw the discus in track. The North quarterbacks are led by Maple Grove senior Caden Harney. He's 6'3", 190, headed to South Dakota State on scholarship, having an outstanding season leading the defending 6A champions. Joining Harney at quarterback is Zimmerman High's Thomas McEachran. The North running backs include Kevin DiRago out of Forest Lake, Calvin Coopersmith of Centennial, and David Erlinson, great running back out of Breckenridge with over 1,500 yards on the ground. The North has 6 receivers on their roster, led by Andover quarterback and great athlete Joseph Mapson. The others include Gotson Rufus Okam Hanru out of Mounds View, who's verbally committed to NDSU, Jamarian Sanders out of Minneapolis North, Sawyer Brown, great player for Becker, Miles Gish, who played for Bemidji, and Tanner Steck of Mahnomen-Waban. The North also has a tight end, Dan Riley out of Maple Lake, so a big receiving core for the North. And the kicker for the North is Sawyer Riffle out of Brainerd. The kid has a big leg. So that is the North All-Stars, 44 players in all, representing the Metro and the Outstate. We will take a break, and when we come back, we will meet the All-Stars from the South.
10K Construction is your one stop for all your general contracting needs, whether interior, exterior, residential, commercial, or multifamily properties. They build relationships with their clients, and that's how they've grown their business through referrals. Plus, they are teaming up with LP SmartSide to become Minnesota's premier siding installer. And they're also partnering with IKO Shingles as well. They've got the best of the best to do the job right. 10K Construction covers both Minnesota and Wisconsin. Now, the rumor is they charge a little extra because it's Packer land. I'm not sure about that, but what I am sure about, 10K Construction is the company you want handling all of your general contracting needs. Go to 10kconstruction.com for details.
Welcome back. Let's now meet the South All-Stars playing in this game on December 13th against the North at US Bank Stadium. And we'll start with the defense. The South defense is led by Sawyer Jezierski out of Edina. He's 6'4", 270, headed to Iowa on scholarship, big-time player. 2 others join Sawyer at the D-tackle position, Josh Bergen out of Lakeville South, and J.R. Verstrate out of Marshall, who's 6', 225, heading to Southwest Minnesota State. There are 4 South defensive ends. Gavin Walden out of Eden Prairie, verbally committed to Montana State. Skylar Werner of Prior Lake. Kyson Arndt from Minneota, committed to Augustana. And Arsene Lukang from Rochester, John Marshall. The South defensive backfield is led by Wasika's outstanding player, Deron Russell, who's headed to NDSU. Great player on a special team. Joining Deron, 5 other outstanding players. Q Barnslater out of Apple Valley, also headed to NDSU. Jaden Garibaldi of Benilde St. Margaret's will likely also handle the kicking duties for the South. Sam Summer of Chaska, Jeremiah Peterson Gordon out of Casson Manorville has verbally committed to the University of St. Thomas. And of course, Pierce Petershawn of Triton committed to Penn State to play tight end. The South linebacking core includes Daniel Devine Outstanding player for Holy Angels, verbally committed to NDSU. Roman Johnson out of Lakeville North at 6'3", 245, going to UMD. Kane Larson out of Fillmore Central, and Nick Tyne, an outstanding running back and linebacker out of Pine Island. The inside backers for the South include Max Jones, who had a great season for Rosemount, Chris Rehawk, outstanding player for Farmington, Jack Carlson, tough two-way player out of Goodhue in Class 2A, and 6'1", 220-pounder Xavier Banjico out of Pipestone. So that's the South defense. Lots of talent all the way around. Let's meet the offense, which is headlined by the number one recruit in the state of Minnesota. Roman Voss out of Jackson County Central had a fantastic senior season. He will play quarterback for the South, but the Gopher commit will play tight end in college. Fun to see him in this game. The other South quarterback is a stud, Nathan Ramler out of Chanhassen, who's had a fabulous season leading the Storm to the state playoffs. The South is loaded at running back, led by Iowa State commit Caleb Francois out of Minnetonka, 6'1", 195, one of the leading rushers in the state. Joining Caleb in the backfield for the South is Caleb Camara out of Burnsville, Brody Schmidt of Rochester Mayo, and Trevor Sheldrup out of Mankato West. The South receivers are led by Jacob Hartman out of Minneapolis Southwest. Micah Finney, great edge rusher for Norwood Young America, is on this team as a receiver. He's committed to Augustana. Micah Bush, outstanding player for Hills Beaver Creek, committed to South Dakota State. And Kason Johnson of Chatfield, great group. The South has two tight ends on the roster, Everett Eichten out of Minneapolis Washburn, and Isaac Spencer, who played for Stewartville. The South has a monster offensive line, led by Prior Lake tackle Ethan Beckman at 6'5", 330, committed to Iowa State next fall. Joining Ethan at tackle for the South is Chanhassen's Owen Linder, who's verbally committed to Iowa. Javen Kelly out of Bloomington Kennedy is committed to South Dakota. Braden Petzel, 6'9", 270, out of Mankato East, headed to Northern Illinois. And Parker Maloney of St. Peter. That's a big group. The South All-Star guards include Brady Struble out of Rosemount at 6'5", 320. Ethan Sather of Eden Prairie, headed to UMD. Weston Rowe of Jackson County Central at 6'7", 275, committed to South Dakota State. And Sam McGill of Albert Lee, a great two-way player who on defense recorded 92 tackles, 22 for losses this fall. The two centers for the South are Aiden Zebzalka of Minnetonka and Tyler Bicknays out of Fairmont. So that is the South All-Stars. Congratulations to all 88 players, and it's going to be a fun game on Saturday, December 13th at 1 o'clock at US Bank Stadium. And my thanks to the game director, Dave Fritzy, for allowing us here at Talk North to release the roster. We'll be right back.
I was visiting with my friends at Truestone Financial the other day. They're a warm and welcoming group. They're known as the Neighborhood Credit Union, and I can't think of a better way to describe them. When I'm at Truestone, I feel like I'm chatting with my neighbors. Combine that personality with a full menu of services and a lot of financial expertise, and you have a winning combination. Whether I need a checking account, a car loan, or even a mortgage, I know I'm going to work with some very smart, friendly people. With 23 locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, you're not far from a Truestone neighborhood. Visit a branch near you or learn more at truestone.org. Truestone is an equal housing opportunity lender.
The Shaver Prep Football Podcast drops every Monday, and you can catch us on YouTube and where podcasts can be found. And a reminder, I'll release my 2025 All-State football team next week. Oliver West from Minnesota Prep Red Zone will join me in studio to break down the 2025 team. That's Monday, November 17th. My thanks to producer Alex Haugen and the great folks here at Talk North. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you next week.